And let's revisit the highlights and then start in on the darks. So first thing I'm going to try is real quick on these highlights, you can see how pixelated these are. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to try just doing a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I appear to be on the wrong layer. Is that true? No, I'm fine. Hold on. Here we go. All right, let's go ahead and blur this just a little bit. Here we go. So we've got some highlights in. Good. And now might be a good time to come in here again. And with a black brush set to 100% opacity, coming over to the midtones layer. The layer mask, gosh, had a brain burp there. I'm sorry, I need white, not black, and I need this to be hard so I know where it is. Whoops, hard. All right, clean that up real fast. Ooh, actually, no, let's not go that far. Turn this back on so I can see what I'm doing. All right. Ooh, yeah. What would it look like if it did go over itself? Not that far, but maybe just a bit. So you're probably thinking, oh no, you're blocking out some highlights. Yes. But I like how it looked, so I'm going to do it anyway. So here we go. I'm going to use a soft brush. I'm going to kick this down to maybe 17%. There we go. Remember, just type 17 and it'll come up there. And that will let me paint this in just a bit. So it's important to revisit the highlights, the midtones, the darks again and again as you work throughout this so that you can start to get a good balance between everything. Nothing exists in isolation, so it's incredibly valuable to spend a little bit of time and just come back and forth. All right, so now I'm going to come in on the highlights. Just kick this down to 3% maybe. You know what, that's too low. Let's bring it up to 15%. Here we go. Start bringing back in some of those highlights. Oh yeah, that looks good. It's a little too hard. So I'm going to set it back to black so I can fade this away. So I'm going to switch over to my pen so that you don't have to sit here forever watching me do this. And I think that that's still a little too harsh. Alt click, see what we've got going on. I think let's use the blur tool on here. Where are you? Smudge tool, blur tool, perfect. Let me crank this up. And low hardness, great. Let's bring the strength up a little bit higher. Okay. Just blur these a little bit. What's another way to blur? The smudge tool. Whoops, but it might be good if I have it set to something a little softer than a bristle brush. Just jiggle back and forth. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. All right, let's see what I've done. Oh, that looks pretty good. All right. Oh, I like that actually. So I'm just using the smudge tool. Oh, look at that. So we've got a weird block right here. Let's take a look at what's happening on the mask. It's clear there, clear there. So it's actually an issue with the color. So I'll click the color. Come back in. There we go. Okay. And again, I'm just using the smudge tool right now, pushing things back and forth. Ooh, that looks good. Not there though, I don't like that. Oh, don't like that at all. Undo a couple times, there we go. Okay, whoops. Switch back over to the mask. And let's see what's going on. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay. Let's just make this follow along a little bit better so that we have some streaks. You can see that that will immediately have a more appropriate effect. I'm going to save because my computer is starting to act a little funky there. Oops. All right. So I think I need to add in a little more light. So I'm going to take my brush, and I mean add in a little more light to the layer mask. Take my brush, flip over. Yeah, that should work. All right, let's take a look at how it's being affected. I have the layer mask active. Okay, starting to have a good effect. This is too harsh, so let's pop over. We'll just soften that up a bit. And again, I'm on a layer mask, so I'm not too worried. Okay, flip that layer mask around. It's a little too much. So I'm heavily affecting the lighting on this. So I have to be sure that I'm following the same lighting schematics of the original image. The schematics, the same lighting as the original image, so that I don't just end up with weird artificial behavior all over the place. Like in here, I don't like what's happening there. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do something a little more interesting. I'm going to make a black and white filter on top of everything we've done, and notice it's a little different. And I'm going to Control-Alt-Shift-E. All right, now I'm going to throw away that black and white filter. I don't need it anymore. I just want this section. What I'm going to do is get a hold of these kind of crispy areas and adjust them directly. So I'm going to take levels. This is a throwaway layer that I'm creating. I just need to get access to this. So I'm actually building a mask, essentially, right in here. Okay, let's look at that. Whoa, good time to save. Let's look at that one more time. Okay, it's looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to select all, Control-A, Control-C to copy. Call this temp. Make sure to throw that away later. I'm going to actually make a new layer real fast, and I'm going to add a layer mask. Whoops, a layer mask. Alt-click to get in here. Control-V to paste in that layer mask. Just real fast in normal mode, take a brush at full opacity. Sorry, I'll just fill it. Alt-Delete. Okay, take a look at that. Whoops, Alt-Delete. Z for zoom. It is hitting up all the problem areas thanks to that mask that I just created. So now's a good time to add some Gaussian blur. It's still too hard. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. That looks pretty good. Okay. We're going to call this second highlights. So now that we've got all of this going on, it's a good idea to group these together. Whoops, sorry. Shift click on the text, and I'm just going to drag this over so we can see a little bit more, and click the new group icon, and we'll call this right slice. And save. So I don't want it red, clearly. So let's come back in here, and let's use an orange to start. And right now it's not in any mode. We'll take care of the rest of this stuff in just a second. But for the moment, let's go ahead and just look over some of our controls. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, ooh, I like that. Pin light. Oh, that looks nice. All right. Go ahead and, whoops, kick down the opacity. Okay, it looks kind of strange at the moment, right? Not a worry. It has to do with how our eye's perceiving all of these colors. I'm just going to come in here with the on the mask, and I'm going to clean up everything around it. How am I going to do that? Well, it's time for the magnetic lasso tool again. So let me save. I'm actually going to work on the temp layer, which I kept around. Specifically so I could do further edits. Now I'm just going to make this rough real fast, and we'll refine it in a minute. And you're thinking to yourself, but wait, you're grabbing the wrong section. That's fine. Control-Shift-I. Boom. Turn off the temp. Pop over to the second lighten. Fill it with, whoa. Fill it with black. There we go. That's most of it. There we go. It's starting to come together quite nicely now. Grab my grab my brush, set it to hard mode, set it to black. Just clean that up a little bit. And I accidentally hit just a smidge. Now, what do you do if you have these outer glows? Sometimes it's fine. It depends on how blurry the image is. If it's very in focus, you'll need to take care of it. And you can do that with brushes. You can do that with all the refinement tools from the postcard assignment, all those guys. If it's blurry, you can leave it a little bit and it'll be fine. Oops. I'm going to use the magic wand tool, but I'm going to make sure it's on all layers so it'll actually work. And shift click and fill that with black. Oops. A couple times. There we go. All right. Don't miss that part. Fill that with black a couple times. Fill that with black a few times. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, watch out for these little hairy bits. You want to keep this nice and clean. Okay. Oh, actually, I want to leave some of those highlights down here too. I think it looks quite nice. Oops. Oops. There we are. Wand tool, shift click to add to it, 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 add to it. Alt delete. All right. And then brush. Anything I missed? Whoa, a little too much. Anything I missed? Being careful about the edges. All right. So probably want to come in here and do the same for the rest. But before we go much further, just orange isn't going to cut it, because again, solid colors are not the way to go. So I can grab my brush, make it nice and soft. Instead of 100%, let's try 40 real quick. So why are these colors occurring? Well, while I'm in normal mode here, I'm in pin light, which will have perhaps unpredictable effects unless you go back and review how pin light functions. So what do I do to counter this? There are a few things. What I'm personally going to do is this, though. Turn off everything but this one layer. So I have this one thing going on. I need to save this mask before I do anything else. So I'm going to click on the mask, go to channels, drag that down to the new layer icon on it. Now I've got the second highlights. Great. Come back to RGB. Come back here. I'm going to make, Alt click so that I can get out of that. I'm going to make a new layer altogether. And I'm going to merge this layer down onto that layer. Now I'm going to reload the mask by just control clicking to make a selection and then adding a new mask. All right, so I've got all of that, yeah? So take a look. It's a lot like the pin light, but a little bit different. So now I'm going to switch it out from pin light to something a little more predictable like overlay. And it's pretty similar, so I'm happy with it. Now I'm going to come in with some red. And now I can predict how it's going to behave. And let's do a little more yellow. And I feel as though 40% is too high. Kick it to 12. Let's do some green. Here we go. It's still too crunchy over here, not a problem. Come on into my mask, Alt click, grab my blur tool. Well, grab my blur tool. Here we are. So I'm going to be focusing in over here. There we go. Get rid of all those artifacts. All right. I'm going to hit this up with levels, Control L. This is a destructive edit, so be careful. I just want to play around. There we go. Now I'm going to hit it up with a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Now I only want to affect what's directly below, so I'm going to Alt click between it. That will create this clipping mask. I could have also clicked this button or gone up to layer and created a clipping mask there. All right. Oh. Kind of like that. I'm going to increase the lightness, decrease the saturation, increase the saturation, decrease the saturation. Just play with it for a moment. Okay. I'm liking that better. This area still needs to be dealt with. Let me merge this down, Control E. All right. Let's find this problem area, and then we'll just move into the darks, even though there's a lot more work that could be done in here. It appears to be here. So I'm going to, and I just turned on and off the layer visibility. Yep, sure enough, there's the issue. I'm going to come in with a brush. I'm going to have a low hardness, and a low hardness and a higher opacity. And I'm going to do white, and I'm going to do it over here so I can see what's happening. Oh, I like that. I painted on the wrong thing, but I like how that went. I need to be in the mask. There we go. And so now I can remove some of that crispness. Ah, that's better. So you see there's a lot of revisiting layers. Whoa. And layer masks. Oh, 12%? Yeah, that's better. Okay. Here we go. Don't like that, so I'll do that. Oops, I accidentally grabbed the crop tool. Escape. My bad. Oops, and now I'm no longer on the layer mask. All right, and now I'm in black instead of white. Okay, here we go. So watch out for little mistakes like that. Okay, this video is getting a little long, so we're going to, even though there's more work that can be done in this, I think you see the directions I'm going. Let's go ahead and visit the shadows, and then we'll see how that slice looks. All right, I'll see you in a minute.